Okay, so The Batman finally arrived in theaters this week, and I went to watch it opening night, and I gotta say I was floored by how good this movie was. It was mind-blowing. Like, I couldn't believe what I was watching on screen. It felt truly like what Batman should feel like. It was dark, gritty, boots to the ground, grounded. And I mean that you could see something like this happening in real life. In fact, something like this really happened in real life with the Zodiac Killer, but we'll get into that later on. And as a lot of you know already, this movie has been in development for a couple years now, initially being like part of the DCEU, the mainline DCEU, with Batfleck helming the film and writing and directing and starring in it, and then he left the DCEU to be with J-Lo, and they switched it over to Matt Reeves, and Matt Reeves said, listen, I don't want to be tied to anything that you've been doing this last couple of years. I want this to be my thing. I want a new actor. I want new everything. This is gonna be new, all new. And the studio did a really cool thing. They trusted him with this IP, and he made something really, really special here, guys. This is a phenomenal film. And notice how I use the word film, because apparently there's a distinction now between films and movies. To me, it's all the same, but this really does feel like it has a lot of artistic authorship in it. You know what I mean? And it draws a lot of inspiration from different movies in the past. There's a lot of Seven in this. Zodiac, a lot of it is straight out of that real life series of events that happened in LA. It even grabs some aspect from the Saw films. There's a lot of horror in this movie. Like I said, I think my last video talking about the Batman, that it looked like a horror movie. Yeah, this pretty much encapsulates a lot of horror aspects from those movies. Like the Saw movies have a huge inspiration. I mean, not huge, but it reflects some of the aspects from those movies in the terms of traps that the Riddler uses to kill politicians, people that he thinks deserve to die for some crimes, or not pulling through with promises they made in the past. And obviously some Batman comics inspiration. They grab a lot from Year One, The Long Halloween, which I actually read and watched a couple weeks ago before in preparation for this movie. I grabbed a lot of inspiration from that graphic novel. The movie actually begins in Halloween. The first murder in the movie takes place in Halloween. So yeah, it takes a lot of aspects, like I said, from all those different comics and movies, but it feels very, very, very unique. This is Batman like we've never seen him before, for real. Matt Reeves took this project and he envisioned it in such a way that you could see his vision for the Batman is the most realistic Batman we've ever seen. Like, you could actually believe this guy, and he is damaged. Bruce Wayne, let's not get this wrong. Bruce Wayne in this movie is damaged. There's no distinction between Batman and Bruce Wayne. You would see Bruce Wayne in the other films and he would be like partying and he's a playboy. In reality, someone with this drive would not be able to do that correctly. He would be a very socially awkward person, and Bruce Wayne in this movie is. But we'll get more into that later on. We're talking about Matt Reeves right now, and his vision for this Bruce Wayne and the world of Batman in this film is just amazing. I bought every relationship. The chemistry between the characters is just brilliant. You could see it emanating from the screen. His partnership with Gordon, because in this movie they do feel like genuine partners. They're solving this crime together, and the way their relationship works is like Gordon is almost desperate to get rid of crime and he has to work with Batman, but he created this trust with him and he's pretty much who defends him at all times when the cops are going like, hey, what the hell are you letting this guy into the crime scene? He's touching everything, he's moving stuff around, and he's like, hey, just let him do his job, he's helping us out, trust me. And trust him. And that relationship is very much what drives the movie for me. It's almost like a body cop movie with Gordon and Batman solving this massive mystery. That's another thing. The world building in this movie is just chef's kiss. This Gotham, this world feels very lived in. It feels like we don't see the Wayne murders. Like, that is so engraved in the collective mindset. Like, we all know what happens to Batman's parents. We all know what drove him to be like this, and they skip that part entirely. We don't see it again. We don't have to see it again. It's part of modern mythology at this point, so we don't have to see that all over again. We get right into the shit. Everybody knows their place. Everybody feels like they've lived their entire lives, and the Gotham is like the most accurate representation of Gotham I've seen on screen ever, for real. Because we see the Christopher Nolan movies, it feels like Chicago. You know it is. Like, you can see it. It's not Gotham. They may call it Gotham in the movies, but it's not. We know it's not. This one, the only thing I can compare it with is the Arkham games. Have you seen those? Where they have like the neon screens and signs all over the place. It feels very much like the Arkham games Gotham, but it's still very, very unique. And the way they set up at the beginning of the movie, the way they set up how the criminals in Gotham fear the presence of the Batman only 2 years into his career. It's amazing. They show like a police helicopter, and they are less scared of the police helicopter than the bat signal. When they see the bat signal, they go, holy shit, I need to leave now, because he could be anywhere. It could be hiding in the shadows, and they push into the shadows a lot of the times, making you think he's gonna walk out of the shadows, because it's what the criminals are thinking. So yeah, they use that device to make you understand the fear that signal brings inside every criminal of Gotham. It's amazing the way they portrayed that, and I loved it. They just managed to make you understand, okay, he has a reputation in this world, and they just established that in what, a minute? It's amazing. Now, the tone of the movie is even darker and more realistic than the Nolan films, because for as dark and realistic the Nolan films were, they still had an element of fantasy. You know, you saw Bruce Wayne going to like train with ninjas, and there was a lot of mysticism to him. In this one, there's none of that. Like, he feels very realistic, and the tone of this is so dark. You're gonna hear me say that a lot. It's so dark, and it's not a kid's movie. I'm serious about this. There's so much happening that kids in an age of like 11, 12, 13, maybe 15 and up, they would grasp a lot of this. Maybe I'm just talking shit, but yeah, the kids, I feel like the story in this movie is so dense, and it would be too much for a kid to grasp and enjoy, basically. So it is a very adult take on the Batman, and the tone is very adult. The relationships are very adult, and yeah, I just love how they portrayed every chemistry, like I said earlier. And that leads to my next point, which is the PG-13 rating. I feel like this movie is an R-rated movie trying to like be PG-13, because there's a lot that they get away with. And I don't know if this is a phrase, but you know how they say when a movie is R, they say it's an hard R? Yeah, this is a hard PG-13. They got away with a lot of violence, a lot of insinuations of violence. There's some F-bombs in there. I heard some hardcore swearing. There's some goddams in there that I thought, okay, maybe kids would be fine listening to, like, hearing them. But the thing is, this thematically and tonally, it's not appealing to a younger audience. So even though it's PG-13, I feel if it would have been R-rated, it would have probably explored much more in depth and graphically what they were exploring. But they did it amazingly with a PG-13 rating. I was in shock and in awe how they got away with a lot of what they did in this movie with that PG-13 rating. A lot of violence, a lot of thematically disturbing issues that Bruce has, and yeah, I love that. I love the tone of this movie, man. We get to the characters, and we're gonna start with Alfred. I love Andy Serkis as Alfred. He got this very worn out feeling to it. It's got a heaviness. He cares. You can see he cares for Bruce, but he's almost like, come on, man, you're really gonna keep doing this to yourself? He's trying to protect him. He behaves like he was his father, which Bruce doesn't appreciate enough in the movie. Yeah, his chemistry with Bruce is kind of shattered. It's kind of broken in a way, where there's like a disconnect with them, that he tries to like establish a connection, but Bruce is so far gone into this persona of the Batman that he just doesn't care. So yeah, I loved Andy Serkis as Alfred. He was amazing. He was not in the movie as much as I would have wanted him to be, but the amount of time he was in the movie was perfect. We got Zoe Kravitz as Zelina Kyle, and the physicality of a character like Catwoman is not an easy thing to achieve. And the way she moved, the way she fought Batman and the criminals in Gotham, the way they demonstrated her ability to steal, because that's her thing, right? She's the cat burglar. She steals stuff, and her introduction was, okay, this is why she is called the cat burglar. She is one of the greatest thieves in Gotham, and they show why. She has like her bag of tools. She goes in there and she fights Batman and she steals. And the relationship, there's a thing that I didn't quite got into with the movie, was her relationship with Batman kind of sped up too much. Like they rushed it a little bit, I felt. But other than that, their chemistry was brilliant, and her physicality and acting in the movie was superb. Probably behind Michelle Pfeiffer, my favorite Catwoman. Which, by the way, they never really call her Catwoman in this movie. So yeah, there's that. She hasn't quite reached that reputation yet. We move on to the Penguin, and oh my God, Colin Farrell. Look at this picture. Colin Farrell is irrecognizable as a Penguin. His face is buried under all this makeup, and you can see every nuance still that he does with his face. Like every little expression, micro expression he does with his face, you can still tell it's there, but you just cannot tell it's Colin Farrell. It's fucking believable. And I love the Penguin so much. Like his character, his humor, the way he walks, the way he talks, the way the Penguin character is built up in this movie, just leaving a lot of, like, he's not in the movie as much. He's the right amount of time in this movie, just like Alfred. A little bit more in the movie like Alfred. He's a bit more of a more important piece in there. But yeah, I'm so excited for that HBO Max show. They're gonna be developing with this Penguin, and I heard they're gonna go for a hard TVMA rating for this movie. What am I saying? For this TV show they're gonna be doing for the Penguin in HBO Max, and I cannot wait. Like, the only thing I could think of were two things leaving this movie. I cannot wait to see the sequel, and I cannot wait to see the Penguin show in the HBO Max. I mean, I was blown away with his performance. Completely one of the best parts in the movie for me. We got John Turturro as Falcone, the big mob boss in the movie, and when I heard that casting choice, I was a bit taken aback, because I have only known John Turturro for comedies, comedic roles, I should say, with his role in the Transformers movies and The Big Lebowski, and he portrayed such an intimidating mob boss and presence in this movie. You felt this guy had a lot of power. Like when Batman catched him, he didn't even flinch. Like he was smug and talking smack to Batman. Like, yeah, you think that cowl scares me? He called him Zorro. Like you could see him not really being intimidated, because he knows he's the big boss of the city. There's no one above him, and he portrayed that calmness and coldness to such a great level. Yeah, I loved him in that role. One of the best Falcones, like on-screen Falcones ever. This as a whole, I should say, is a much more stronger opening to a franchise than, say, Batman Begins was. It's way better than Batman Begins, and I love Batman Begins. This is a better film. We move over to Paul Dano's Riddler, and holy shit, this guy is scary. You know what? He did with the Riddler what Heath Ledger did with the character of the Joker. He completely reinvented the character, but still keeping those core characteristics and mannerisms that the character, like the crazy core stuff that makes the Riddler. but still making him so much darker and so much more insane. Like, he is basically what I would compare him in this movie is basically just John Kramer. He is developing all these traps and capturing these people that he deems deplorable and punishing them for being corrupt. And he actually thinks that he and Batman are doing the same thing, but he's going about it in a completely different way. And I love that he actually truly believes his motives are just, and he's just trying to bring justice to these people. Also, I love that he uses social media in this movie to create a movement, a following for the Riddler. And yeah, you would think that would be crazy, but I have zero doubts in my mind that if a guy like the Riddler pops up and start making TikToks, some people will get behind his cause, like for real. Now let's talk a little bit more about Robert Pattinson as Batman and Bruce Wayne in this movie. Like I said earlier, there's no real distinction between Batman and Bruce Wayne in this movie, and the way he starts the narration in this movie is just by writing a diary called the Gotham Project. That's why he calls it the Gotham Project, and he's writing in there and he's narrating this whole thing. You got this whole inner monologue going on inside of his head, and he's narrating the entire movie, a lot of how Year One did, and it reminded me a lot too of Rorschach in Watchmen. I know he's kind of a spoof of Batman, a critique on him, but yeah, it brought me back to that. It reminded me of Rorschach and his diet. Also, we see the Batman most in this movie. Like, we almost get zero Bruce Wayne. It's all just Batman and him just being consumed by this identity of the Batman and questioning it and just going a little bit crazy for it also. And like those people that just said, oh, Twilight Boy, Twilight Kid this, Twilight Kid that, it's over. That shit is done. It's in the past, put in a drawer. It's been over for years. You just haven't seen him in anything except Twilight. But he's been making amazing movies for years. And this is the one that's gonna like set it apart. Like, yep, he is no longer Twilight Boy. He's Batman now. And that's gonna be another thing he's gonna have to deal with for a long time. Let's talk a little bit about the suit, because I love the suit in this movie so much. The Batsuit, it's my favorite on-screen Batsuit yet. I gotta say that. It's my favorite. It's practical, it's simple, and it grabs a lot of inspiration from other sources. Like, the neck of the cowl is from Gotham by Gaslight. The armor plates in his suit are straight out of the Arkham games. His cowl just reminds me of that Adam West type of mask he wore in the TV show. And the short cape too. Like, oh, it grabbed a lot from different sources, and I loved it. Like, the entire look of this character is practical. He didn't even glide with his cape. He had like this squirrel type of suit, squirrel suit, is that what they call it? Where this just covered him entirely, and that's how he glided through the city. And that is an actual thing people do just for fun. They put on these suits and they just dive through the air. I love the little gadgets pop out of this suit itself. There's no utility belt, so to speak. The gadgets kind of just pop out of the suit itself. Like the chest piece is a little tactical knife. Like, the grappling hook popped out of his gloves. And things like that make the suit so much practical. And the aesthetic of it is way better for me than the other iteration. And let's talk now about one of my absolute favorite aspects of this movie is the new Batmobile. I love the Batmobile in this movie. The muscle car aspect to it, the rocket in the back. It also grabs a lot of inspiration from different things, but it's so unique and cool looking, and you can feel the torque when he's driving it. You can feel his desperation just taking curves, dodging cars. And that chase scene, by the way, you see parts of it in the trailer, so I'm not spoiling anything here. That chase scene with the penguin was the best part of the movie for me. For real, it's probably my favorite sequence in the entire movie. I love the action in the movie as well. There's not a lot of it for a Batman movie. There's not a lot of action, but the sequences are so well shot and choreographed. You can tell, you can see two people fighting this. You can tell they put a lot of thought into how they're gonna fight, how each one of the characters fight. I 100% recommend this film. There's a couple issues with the pacing in the middle. I gotta say, they kind of lull a little bit, but it picked up right in the end. And I gotta say, this is a perfect Batman film. It's a perfect Batman film. It feels just like reading a comic book. It's noir, it's dark, and it's, yeah, I fully recommend it. That is all I got for you today, guys. Please tell me, have you seen this movie in theaters? Comment down in the section below what you think about this movie. Did you like it? Do you have a favorite Batman film? Please tell me down in the comments below. Follow me at caffeine.prince98. I don't have Twitter because I hate it, and Facebook is for the family. I'll catch you guys later. Peace.